In this video, we're going to learn more about the derivative. So we want to first review the derivative at a point. We're looking at f of x equals x squared over 2. Here's a simple graph. And we're asking what f prime of 1 is. What is the derivative of f at the point x equals 1? Here's the general definition of the derivative. Okay, so let's go ahead and plug in f prime of 1. That's the limit as h approaches 0. F of 1 plus h minus f of 1 all divided by h. So we have the limit as h approaches 0. Plug in 1 plus h to f of x. We have 1 plus h quantity squared divided by 2 minus f of 1, that's 1 squared over 2, all over h. Okay? That's the limit as h approaches 0. And these both have a 1/2, so I'm going to factor out the 1/2. And that gets multiplied by the quantity. So we have 1 plus h squared. That's going to give us 1 plus 2h plus h squared. And we're left with minus 1 squared, which is just 1. And that's all over h. That's the limit as h approaches 0. These 1's cancel out. Okay, so we have 1/2 times 2h plus h squared all over h. So we can factor an h out of the top. And I'm going to go ahead and move the 2 down to the bottom. Okay, so h times 2 plus h, taking an h away from the 2 and an h away from another h, all over, remember the 2 comes down, multiplied by h. Okay, so these h's cancel. So we're left with the limit as h approaches 0. 2 plus h divided by 2. Okay, if h goes to 0, this term vanishes. So we're left with 2 over 2, or 1. Okay, so f prime of 1 equals 1. What does that mean? It means at the point x equals 1, the slope of the tangent is 1. Okay? Slope equals 1. Alright? That's the derivative at a point. Now, what if we asked, what is f prime of x, where x is any point? What would that mean? Say we have some graph, right? X, f of x. F prime of x, what is this? That means if we take a point x, some random point along here, for that point, f prime of x is the slope, just for that specific x value, right? It's the slope of the function at that x value. For any x, if x was over here, slope would look like that. If x was here, so it varies where x is, right? For any x, we're thinking about the slope. Okay, so let's think about the last function that we just looked at, f of x equals x squared over 2. Okay? What is f prime of x? How do we find it? We're going to use the limit. Limit definition of the derivative, okay? The limit as h approaches 0. Okay? Now, in the last example, when we were looking for f prime of 1, we used f of 1 plus h minus f of 1 divided by h. But now, we're going to use x. Any x. So we have f of x plus h minus f of x divided by h. Okay? This is the limit. As h approaches 0, what is f of x plus h? We want to plug x plus h into this expression. We have x plus h, quantity squared, divided by 2, minus f of x, which is x squared over 2, all divided by h. Okay? I'm going to factor out the 2, or the 1/2. I'm going to put it on the denominator. Limit as h approaches 0. Okay, so the denominator is going to have 2 times h. And then I'm going to go ahead and multiply out the numerator, right? So we're going to have x squared plus 2xh plus h squared, and then I'm left with a minus x squared from the right-hand term. Okay? X squareds cancel. I'm left with the limit as h approaches 0. And then these terms share an h, so we can factor out an h. If I take an h away from this, I'm left with 2x. If I take an h away from this, I'm left with h. Now these h's cancel. So this is the limit as h approaches 0 of 2x plus h divided by 2. So if h is going to 0, this term drops out, and I'm left with 2 times x over 2, or just x, okay? So what did we ask for originally? F prime of x. F prime of x is equal to x. What does that mean? That means if I take any value of x, and I ask, what is the slope of f of x at x? The slope is x. So take any x, and the slope is equal just to x. That's pretty easy, right? That's an easy relationship. Let's think about what that means graphically. So on the left, I'm plotting f of x. That's our function x squared over 2. And here I'm plotting f prime of x. f prime of x is just x. So that looks like that line passing through 0. So remember, take any x. Okay, so let's say this is x. Okay? And ask, what is the slope at that x? Let's say that's x equals 1. That means that the derivative at x equals 1 is equal to 1. F prime of x is equal to 1. Okay? What about negative 1? What is the slope at negative 1? F prime of x equals x. So at x equals negative 1, f prime of x is negative 1, right? What about at 0? At 0, x equals 0. What is f prime of x? It's 0, right? 0 slope. Well, that makes sense, right? This curve is f prime of x, and it passes through 0 at x equals 0. So any point you pick on the left-hand drawing, if x is 500, that means that f prime of x is 500. If x is negative 1 million, that means that f prime of negative 1 million is negative 1 million. F prime of x tells you the slope of f of x at every single point. Okay? Now that's pretty powerful. That's different than finding the slope at one point. This tells you the slope of f of x at every single point.